The grating sound of the blade slicing through the rope became the only final note echoing in my ears as I fell. The wind whistled past my ears like the screams of countless vengeful spirits. I looked up at the man I once loved to the depths of my soul, Henry. His handsome face, shrinking in my diminishing field of view, was etched with determination and a hint of relief. Beside him was his first love, Vivian. She hung tearfully from another rope, resembling a delicate white flower, while I was the weed clipped away to preserve that flower. "Serena, I'm sorry. Vivian can't die." These were the last words he said to me. Then, like an abandoned pebble, I plummeted rapidly into the bottomless canyon. Ironic, isn't it? Today was our third wedding anniversary. We were both outdoor enthusiasts, and Henry suggested commemorating this special day with a tandem rock climbing adventure. I readily agreed. But just as we were geared up and ready to go, Vivian's call came in. On the other end, she sobbed uncontrollably, saying she had been heartbroken, felt her entire world collapsing, and could no longer go on living. Henry's brows immediately furrowed into a deep frown. Holding the phone, his voice was a tenderness I had never heard before. "Vivian, don't do anything foolish. Where are you?" "I'll come right away." I stood aside, my heart sinking bit by bit. This scene had played out countless times over the past 3 years. Vivian, Henry's childhood sweetheart and first love, had been abroad for 7 years and suddenly returned a year ago, becoming an ineradicable thorn in our marriage ever since. When she lost her job, Henry used his connections to find her employment. When she fell ill, Henry rushed out at 3 a.m. to deliver medicine to her, leaving me alone in the cold bed. When she argued with her boyfriend, Henry could abandon our family dinner with my parents to accompany her for drinks and consolation. I had not refrained from protesting. But each time, Henry would look at me with those affectionate eyes and say, "Serena, don't overthink it. She and I are just friends, like siblings. She's all alone in City A with no one to rely on, I can't ignore her." His friends, my mother-in-law, everyone advised me, "Serena, be more magnanimous. Vivian is just too naive, Henry is merely kind-hearted. You are his wife." Naive? A woman who could summon a married man at will, chat with him late at night, and constantly require brotherly comfort, could she truly be naive? I sneered inwardly, yet I could only swallow my grievances and anger time and again. Because I loved Henry, loved him enough to blind myself for his sake. This time was no different. Henry hung up the phone and looked at me with a troubled expression. "Serena, Vivian, her emotions are very unstable. I want to bring her along to unwind. Perhaps an extreme sport like rock climbing can help her vent." I looked at him, almost laughing in anger. "Henry, today is our wedding anniversary. Moreover, Vivian is a rock climbing novice, taking her to such a dangerous place, are you insane? It's fine, I'm here. I'll protect both of you." He walked over, embracing my shoulders, his tone pleading, "Serena, just this once, okay? Seeing her like that, I really can't rest easy." Seeing the worry in his eyes, my heart felt as if pricked by a needle. Such an expression, he had never given it to me. In the end, I compromised. I even naively thought that perhaps, in Vivian's presence, Henry would prove with his actions whom he truly loved. Reality, however, delivered the loudest and bloodiest slap to my face. We chose a moderately difficult rock face with stunning scenery. Henry, as the lead climber, was experienced, Vivian and I followed behind. It started smoothly. I deliberately kept my distance from them, unwilling to witness their nauseating sibling affection. Vivian lived up to expectations, whining and feigning weakness all the way. "Henry, I'm scared, my hands have no strength. Henry, this rock is so slippery, I can't climb up." Henry displayed utmost patience, guiding and encouraging her repeatedly, even expending considerable energy to climb up, find her footholds, and come back down. Meanwhile, I followed silently behind like an outsider, the ice in my heart thickening. The accident occurred at 2 p.m. The weather changed abruptly, with strong winds blowing without warning, dislodging several pebbles from above. Vivian screamed, her foot slipped, and she was instantly dangling in midair. Her swing caused Henry, who was on the same belay line, to lose balance as well. And I, positioned below them, was yanked downward by this immense force, crashing hard against the rock wall. In an instant, the three of us were like a string of grasshoppers, suspended in midair solely by a solitary piton on the rock wall and the main rope. Ah, help! Henry, save me! Vivian's cries were piercing, as if tearing through the sky. Don't be afraid. Vivian. Hold on tight. Henry's voice was filled with panic. My forehead was gashed, blood flowing down my cheeks and blurring my eyes. Enduring the intense pain, I looked up. The situation was worse than I imagined. The sole piton, under the pull of three people's weight, showed signs of loosening, with surrounding rock cracks widening. It wouldn't hold much longer. Henry! Listen to me. I shouted with all my strength, trying to calm him. Listen, you need to adjust your center of gravity immediately, slowly shift your and Vivian's weight to the auxiliary rope on the other side, then use the ascender. My words were cut off by Henry. Serena! Stop talking. I can't do it. His voice trembled with despair. The piton is about to fall. We'll all die. We won't. Trust me. We still have a chance. I tried to make my voice sound calm, but my heart kept sinking. I knew Henry well, we had climbed together for 5 years, and I was fully aware of his skills and mental resilience. It wasn't that he couldn't do it, he was panicked. His heart was entirely with Vivian. Henry. I feel so awful, my hands are about to break. Vivian's cries grew fainter, as if she might stop breathing at any moment. I don't want to die. My parents have only me as their daughter. This feeble sobbing shattered the last remnant of reason in Henry's mind like a heavy hammer. He stared fixedly at the precarious piton, then glanced at Vivian below, sobbing weakly, a flash of mad determination crossing his face. Then, he lifted his head and looked at me. In that moment, our eyes met, and I saw something in his gaze I had never seen before, remorse, pain, struggle, but mostly a cold, ruthless determination to sacrifice everything for a certain goal. My heart stopped beating in that instant. An absurd and terrifying thought slithered into my mind like a venomous snake. No. It couldn't be. He was my husband, we had vows to be together for life, never to part. How could he? Serena. He spoke, his voice hoarse like sandpaper scraping. I'm sorry. My blood froze in an instant. Henry, what are you going to do? My voice trembled uncontrollably. He didn't answer me but instead pulled a sharp mountaineering knife from his waist equipment pouch. That knife was the birthday gift I had given him, imported from Germany, capable of cutting through iron like mud. The blade reflected a bone-chilling glint under the overcast sky. Henry, don't. Vivian also saw his action. Not only did she not stop him, but she cried even harder, yet a fleeting glint of anticipation and malice flashed in her eyes, hard to detect. I saw it all. So this was her true face. So I was the most ridiculous fool. Henry! I screamed shrilly, like a dying cuckoo. You dare! He closed his eyes, seemingly unable to bear looking at my face. Serena, you're the strongest, the best at taking care of yourself. His voice drifted in the wind, light as a sigh. But Vivian is different, she's been frail since childhood, she can't live without me. What a ridiculous reason. Just because I'm strong, I deserve to die? Just because she's weak, she deserves to be saved, even at the cost of my life? I looked at him and suddenly laughed. As I laughed, tears flowed down, mixing with the blood on my face, salty and bitter. 3 years of marriage, 5 years of relationship, it turned out to be nothing but a joke. I, Serena, at 28 years old, decisive and feared in the business world, yet in love, I lost utterly, left in ruins. Henry, I stopped laughing, my voice cold as the ice in the canyon. You'll regret this. I'm sorry. He said those 3 words again, then raised his hand, and the knife fell. Screech, that sound was the cruelest symphony I had ever heard. My world spun. Weightlessness enveloped me instantly, like a leaf swept away by a gale. I plummeted powerlessly into the endless abyss. In the last second before losing consciousness, I seemed to hear Vivian's relieved sobs and Henry's heart-wrenching shout. Serena. Hypocritical. Truly disgusting. Pain. My entire body felt as if disassembled and reassembled, tearing agony radiating from every limb. I struggled to open my eyes, greeted by mottled tree shadows and a gray, hazy sky. Was I still alive? I moved my fingers, the sharp pain making me gasp. Looking down, I realized I was lying on a massive, laterally growing cliff cypress. This tree grew on an inward recessed cliff, like a natural shelter. It had saved my life. I struggled to sit up and assessed my injuries. My left leg was fractured, twisted at a bizarre angle. My right arm was dislocated, hanging limply. Countless abrasions and bruises covered my body. The wound on my forehead had clotted, with scabs matted in my hair, itchy and painful. I had never been so disheveled. Yet I felt no pain. The wound in my heart hurt 1,000 times more than all my physical injuries combined. Henry's resolute face, Vivian's triumphant sobs, and the knife that severed all our bonds replayed in my mind like movie scenes. Each frame was like a poisoned blade, repeatedly torturing my heart. Love? It had long vanished. What remained was overwhelming hatred. Henry, Vivian. You thought I was dead, didn't you? You thought you could be together in peace, using my life to fulfill your great love? Dream on. As long as I, Serena, had a breath left, I would crawl out from hell and personally send you adulterous pair to the 18th level of hell, never to be reborn. A powerful will to survive and flames of vengeance burned fiercely in my chest. I couldn't die. I absolutely couldn't die here. Enduring the agony, I began surveying my surroundings. This was midway up the canyon wall, neither reaching the sky nor the ground. My phone had long been lost in the fall. I had to save myself. Using my only movable left hand, I unfastened the equipment pouch from my waist. Thank heavens, it was still there. Inside were few items, a small bottle of water, half an energy bar, and a first aid kit. First, I used bandages from the first aid kit to splint my fractured left leg with a sturdy branch. Then, gritting my teeth, I rammed my body against the rock wall to forcibly relocate my dislocated right arm. With a crack, the intense pain blackened my vision, nearly causing me to faint. Cold sweat instantly soaked my back. I gasped heavily until the dizziness subsided. Then, I took out the half-energy bar and ate it in small bites. I had to conserve my strength. The sky gradually darkened. Nights in the mountains brought a sharp drop in temperature. The cold wind scraped my wounds like knives. I curled up on the trunk, cold and hungry, with wounds throbbing in waves. In the darkness, I seemed to hear beasts howling and unknown insects hissing. Fear surged like a tide. But I bit my lip hard, not allowing a single sound to escape. My mind held only one thought: survive. I had to live and return to see the shocked and horrified faces of Henry and Vivian. I would make them pay the most painful price for their actions. This thought, like a fire, sustained me through the long, cold night. The second day, the third day. 2 days passed. My water and food were exhausted. My lips cracked and bled, my throat felt like it was smoking. I began hallucinating. I saw my parents, anxiously calling my name. I saw the mountains of files in the company and subordinates waiting for my decisions. I also saw Henry. He was still in that gentle guise, extending his hand to me, saying, "Serena, come home." I shook my head violently and bit my tongue tip. The sharp pain instantly cleared my mind. I realized soberly that the gentle Henry was dead. He died the moment he raised the knife and cut my safety rope. The current Henry was my enemy, the perpetrator who attempted to murder me. I couldn't give up. With my last ounce of strength, I rummaged through the first aid kit and found a survival whistle. Then, I began blowing. Beep, 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 the shrill whistle echoed through the vast canyon. I didn't know if it would work. I only knew it was my last hope. I blew for a while, rested for a while, conserving energy. Time passed second by second. My consciousness began to blur. Just when I thought I would truly die here, a buzzing sound approached from afar. It was the sound of a helicopter. The rescue team. Immense joy burst in my heart. With all my strength, I blew the survival whistle. Beep, 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 beep. The sound was hoarse yet full of power. Soon, the helicopter hovered above me, a rope descended, and a figure in orange rescue gear appeared before me like a deity. Miss. Are you okay? Hold on. We're here to rescue you. Seeing him, my tears finally broke free and streamed down. I was saved. I could go back and seek revenge. When I was delivered to the temporary medical point at the mountain base, I saw the two people I dreamed of tearing apart, Henry and Vivian. Both had changed into clean clothes, appearing unscathed. Vivian was leaning in Henry's arms, sobbing softly, looking as if she had suffered immense injustice. Henry held her, comforting her gently, his face full of heartache and pity. Police and rescue team members surrounded them, seemingly inquiring about the situation. What a touching scene of mutual affection, if not for the dead person's, inopportune appearance. My stretcher was carried over. All eyes instantly focused on me. The air seemed to freeze in that moment. I saw Henry's gentle and pitying expression instantly turn to utmost shock and fear. His pupils contracted sharply, his mouth agape wide enough to fit an egg, as if seeing a ghost in broad daylight. And Vivian in his arms was even more pale with fright. Her pitiful face instantly drained of color, pallid as paper, her eyes filled with disbelief and malice. Yes, malice. She hated that I hadn't died. Seeing their spectacular expressions, I suddenly felt my wounds hurt less. Facing them, I slowly pulled a cold smile. Husband, seeing me alive, isn't it quite disappointing? My voice wasn't loud, yet it exploded like thunder in the silent crowd. Serena? Henry finally regained his voice, trembling as he pushed Vivian away and stumbled toward me. You're not dead? That's great. You're really not dead. He lunged to my stretcher side, trying to grasp my hand, forcing an ecstatic expression, tears even welling in his eyes. Thank heavens. I knew you had good fortune. Serena, you scared me to death. I thought I'd never see you again. His acting was so superb it was nauseating. If I hadn't personally experienced that hellish fall and 2 days and nights of desperate waiting, I might almost have been fooled by his affectionate demeanor. I raised my only movable left hand, avoiding his touch. Don't touch me. My voice was ice cold. I find it filthy. Henry's movement froze, his expression solidified. Serena, what are you saying? I said, don't touch me with that hand that held the knife and killed me. I stated clearly, word by word. I find it disgusting. My words made everyone around gasp. All eyes shuttled between Henry and me with inquiry and doubt. A police officer approached, asking gravely, Madam, what do you mean by what you just said? What do you mean by killed you? I ignored the officer, my eyes remained fixed on Henry throughout. I wanted to see how he would quibble. Henry's face had turned from pale to ashen. Panic flashed in his eyes, quickly replaced by a heartbroken expression. Serena. How can you say that? I know you're injured and resentful, but how can you slander me like this? He turned to the police, explaining sorrowfully, Officers, don't listen to her nonsense. The situation was extremely critical, the piton loosened, and all 3 of us were hanging there. Suddenly a gust of wind came, and Serena, she didn't step steadily and slipped off. I wanted to save her then, but it was too late. As he spoke, he closed his eyes in pain, 2 streams of tears flowing aptly. It's my fault. I couldn't protect her. It's all my mistake. If possible, I wish it had been me who fell. Oh, what a heart-rending drama of deep affection and loyalty. Not pursuing acting is truly a waste of talent. Vivian behind him immediately caught on, covering her mouth as she wept uncontrollably, joining in the chorus. Yes, officers, don't blame Henry, he really did his best. When sister-in-law fell, Henry completely broke down, crying like a child, even wanting to jump down with me to accompany her. I held him tightly to prevent him from doing something foolish. Sister-in-law, I know you resent us, but things really aren't as you think. While crying, she looked at me with a reproachful gaze as if saying, how can you be so unreasonable? The two harmonized, inverting right and wrong, turning an intentional murder into a regrettable accident. The surrounding people's gazes toward me began to change oddly. Yes, a woman who just survived a life-or-death ordeal, emotionally agitated and rambling, seemed excusable. And her husband, though guilty of failing to save his wife, was also a pitiable victim, grief-stricken. If I were a bystander, I might believe their story. Unfortunately, I wasn't. Watching their strenuous performance, a cold laugh nearly escaped my lips. Is that so? I spoke softly, interrupting their act. Slipped and fell? Slowly, I pulled something from my jacket pocket. It was what I subconsciously clutched tightly during the fall, the severed end of my safety rope. I held it up before Henry, displaying it to everyone. Henry, tell me, what kind of slip could make a professional climbing dynamic rope, 10.5 millimeters in diameter, capable of withstanding over 2 tons of tension, break so neatly? The rope's cut was smooth as a mirror. It was the mark of a sharp blade severing it in one stroke. It couldn't possibly have been frayed by rocks or snapped from excessive tension. It was a knife cut. All eyes fell on that section of rope. Many present were professional rescuers and climbing enthusiasts, they recognized the issue at a glance. Whispers arose in the crowd. This cut, it's definitely from a knife. Too neat, couldn't be accidental breakage. What's going on? Could what she said be true? Henry's pupils contracted sharply again. He stared fixedly at the rope in my hand, his face draining of color in a whoosh. He probably never dreamed that in such circumstances, I would retain such fatal evidence. No, this isn't. His lips trembled, unable to form a complete sentence. Isn't what? I looked at him coldly, pressing step by step. Not your doing? Then where is your mountaineering knife? The one you gave me as a birthday gift, that incredibly sharp German knife, where is it? My knife. Henry's gaze began to evade. My knife, in the chaos, I accidentally dropped it. Dropped? I laughed, tears coming out from laughing. Henry, oh Henry, your lying skills are as poor as ever, unchanged for a decade. I turned to the police officer who had remained silent, my voice suddenly rising, filled with accusation and indignation. Officer. I want to report a crime. I, Serena, formally report my husband Henry and his first love Vivian for conspiring during the climb to deliberately cut my safety rope, attempting to murder me. This section of rope in my hand is evidence. My injuries are evidence. I demand an immediate investigation. Search their belongings and see where that dropped murder weapon really is. My voice echoed through the entire camp. Everyone was shocked by my words. Henry and Vivian's faces could no longer be described as pale, it was the ashen hue of the dead. The officer's expression became extremely serious. Please calm down, Miss Serena. We will immediately verify what you've said. He signaled to his colleagues, Lee, Amy, please take these two, Mr. Henry and Ms. Vivian, aside for statements and check their personal gear. No. I didn't. I'm innocent. Henry exploded like a cat with its tail stepped on, pointing at me and roaring hysterically, Serena. You madwoman. Why are you harming me like this? Is it because I brought Vivian, you're jealous, so you deliberately fabricated these lies to retaliate against me? His words reminded me of Vivian, who had been standing behind him, trembling. I cast my icy gaze toward that delicate white lotus. Ms. Vivian, it's your turn. Didn't you say he was grief-stricken then, wanting to jump down with you to accompany me? I looked at her, a cruel curve at my lips. Then dare you let the police check your clothes to see if there are any marks from a sharp instrument? I remembered clearly. When Henry cut my rope, Vivian was right beside him. The knife was so close to her. In that chaos, the blade very likely could have accidentally slashed her clothes, or even her skin. Vivian's body stiffened abruptly. Subconsciously, she covered her left arm with her hand. That action, though only momentary, was keenly captured by me, and noted by the surrounding police. Officers. I didn't. I know nothing. Her voice shook uncontrollably, tears falling like broken beads. I was terrified then, I saw nothing. Sister-in-law, why are you doing this to me? I know you don't like me, but you can't wrong me like this. She tried to repeat her old trick, using tears to gain sympathy. Unfortunately, before ironclad evidence, more tears only made it worse. The two officers approached them, stating expressionlessly, "Mr. Henry, Ms. Vivian, please cooperate with our investigation." Henry still wanted to resist but was deterred by the officer's sharp gaze. He looked at me, eyes full of malice and unwillingness, as if I were the heinous criminal. I met his gaze fearlessly, my eyes holding only endless coldness and mockery. Henry, the game had just begun. The police were highly efficient. In less than 10 minutes, they found the blood-stained mountaineering knife in the interlayer of Vivian's backpack. The blood was mine. The handle clearly bore Henry's fingerprints. Simultaneously, the forensic examiner found a slash from a sharp instrument on Vivian's left arm jacket. With witnesses and evidence complete, Henry and Vivian were immediately detained by the police. I was lifted onto an ambulance by medical personnel and sent to the best hospital in the city. Lying in the ambulance, my first action wasn't to contact my parents but to call my company's chief legal advisor, Victor. Victor, my voice was somewhat hoarse from weakness, but my thoughts were exceptionally clear. Help me with two things. First, draft the divorce agreement immediately. I want Henry to leave with nothing. We had a prenuptial agreement, all assets under his name, including cars, houses, company shares, are increments from my premarital property, and I have the right to reclaim them all. Second, I want to file criminal charges against him and Vivian for intentional homicide. I want them to rot in prison. Victor on the other end was evidently stunned by my words. Serena? What happened? Are you injured? A minor accident, I won't die. I narrated calmly. My husband, for his first love, pushed me off the cliff. Oh no, he cut my rope. I could imagine the shocked expression on Victor's face. All right, Serena. I understand. He quickly regained his professionalism. Rest assured, I'll handle these two matters immediately. Focus on recovering, leave everything else to me. Hanging up, I let out a long sigh of relief. Outside the window, city lights lit up one by one, then were left behind. My heart was unprecedentedly calm. Without love, there were no vulnerabilities. From now on, I, Serena, would live for myself. I stayed in the hospital for a full month. During that time, my parents rushed from out of town. Seeing my injuries, they cried heartbrokenly. I told them the entire story truthfully. My dad was so furious he wanted to rush to the police station to confront Henry, but my mom held him back tightly. Dad, Mom, don't worry. I held their hands, my gaze firm. Your daughter isn't so easily defeated. I'll settle this account with them, item by item. Henry's mother, my mother-in-law, came to the hospital causing trouble several times. Her first visit was on my third day in the hospital. She burst into the ward, not concerned about my injuries, but launching into a tirade of accusations. Serena! You venomous woman! What nonsense did you tell the police? Why are you harming our Henry? Like a shrew, she pointed at my nose and cursed. Henry loves you so much, how could he harm you? It must be you. You must have fallen carelessly yourself, now turning around to frame him. What a ruthless heart. What sin did our family commit to marry a jinx like you? Looking at her face twisted in anger, I lacked even the energy to argue. I simply pressed the bedside call button calmly. Soon, nurses and security arrived. Escort her out. I pointed at my mother-in-law to the security. From now on, this person and all from the Chen family are not allowed to step into my ward. You dare. My mother-in-law trembled with rage. Serena. I'm your mother-in-law. Do you have no respect for elders? From the moment Henry raised the knife against me, you ceased to be my mother-in-law. I looked at her coldly. Get out. My mother-in-law was forcibly dragged out by security. She threw a tantrum in the corridor, wailing and attracting a crowd. Yet I didn't even bother to lift an eyelid. Her second visit was with a lawyer and a forgiveness letter. By then, Henry and Vivian had been formally arrested and prosecuted for intentional homicide. She changed her previous arrogance, crying profusely before me. Serena, Mom begs you, spare Henry this time. He's still young, he can't go to prison. If he does, his life will be ruined. She pushed the forgiveness letter toward me. Serena, as long as you sign this, the Chen family is willing to compensate you. Our old house and all my savings, I'll give them all to you. Please, for the sake of us once being family, show mercy and let Henry off. Looking at the forgiveness letter, I found it utterly ridiculous. Let him off? I looked at her, countering, then who will let me off? When he pushed me off the cliff, did he think of letting me off? When I was desperately waiting to die in the mountains, who came to let me off? My voice wasn't loud, yet each word pierced the heart. My mother-in-law's cries paused, her face turning ugly. Wasn't it an accident? Henry was just momentarily confused. Momentarily confused? I sneered. Killing one's wedded wife to save a first love, this is momentarily confused? In your eyes, your son's future is more important than my life, right? My mother-in-law was rendered speechless by my question. I picked up the forgiveness letter and, in front of her, tore it to shreds bit by bit. Go back and tell your son to prepare. On the court day, I'll personally testify and send him in. I threw the shreds at her face, stating word by word, for the rest of his life, let him repent properly in prison. Serena. You vicious woman. Seeing pleading hopeless, my mother-in-law revealed her true colors again, pointing and cursing at me. I closed my eyes, too lazy to glance at her. Whatever she said could no longer sway me in the slightest. A month later, I was discharged. My leg was still in a cast, requiring a wheelchair. On discharge day, Victor picked me up. He told me the divorce procedures were completed. Since Henry was at fault and we had a prenup, the court awarded all marital property under our names to me. Henry truly left with nothing. Through Victor, I also handled the civil compensation lawsuit against Henry and Vivian. They were required to jointly compensate me for medical expenses, lost wages, and mental damages, totaling over $3 million. Of course, I knew they couldn't pay this sum. But that wasn't important. What mattered was making them penniless. The criminal trial was scheduled in half a month. During that time, I recuperated at home while handling accumulated company affairs. I thought the matter would conclude like this. Unexpectedly, 3 days before the trial, I received an unforeseen call from Vivian's parents. They apologized profusely on the phone and proposed meeting me. I initially wanted to refuse. But one sentence they said changed my mind. Miss Serena, we know some secrets about Vivian and Henry that might be useful for your lawsuit. I agreed. The meeting place was set at a quiet cafe. Vivian's parents were a seemingly honest and dutiful middle-aged couple. Upon seeing me, they bowed deeply. Miss Serena, we're sorry, it's our failure in raising her that led her to commit such heinous acts. Paul's face was filled with guilt and weariness. We came today to atone on behalf of that sinful daughter. Saying this, they handed me a craft envelope. Inside are all of Vivian's consumption records since her return, and her chat logs with Henry. We secretly copied them from her computer. I opened the envelope puzzled. Inside was a thick stack of A4 papers. I flipped through them one by one. The more I read, the colder my heart grew, my hands trembling uncontrollably. The consumption records showed that in the year since Vivian's return, she had almost no income source. Yet she lived an extremely luxurious life, designer bags, high-end cosmetics, 5-star hotels. All bills were paid by Henry. So his so-called assistance was this boundless sponsorship. And those chat logs made me feel as if plunged into an ice cave. Henry, I fancy a new bag, buy it for me, okay? Henry can't bear to see you suffer, I'll support you. Henry, did Serena argue with you again? It's all my fault, maybe I should leave. I don't want to ruin your relationship. Don't talk nonsense, it's not your fault. She's too petty. Vivian, rest assured, in my heart, no one is more important than you. Henry, does this count as betraying Serena? No. The one I love is you, from beginning to end, only you. Marrying her was just a business marriage, for my family's business. Business marriage? Looking at those words, I trembled with rage, nearly crumpling the paper. Henry and I were college classmates. We loved for 2 years, he cared for me tenderly. After graduation, he proposed, and I thought we were a match made in heaven. Our family was wealthier than theirs, and my company, with my father's help, had given Henry's family many projects. But I never imagined that in his heart, our marriage was just a transaction? And I was merely the woman he had to marry for business? How ridiculous! How cruel! Miss Serena, don't be angry. Helen looked at my ashen face and spoke cautiously. Actually, Vivian, this time she returned, wanted to snatch Henry back. She felt you took everything that should have been hers. So she designed all this? I lifted my head, eyes bloodshot. Yes. Paul nodded painfully. The climbing was her idea. She said to create an accident to make you disappear forever. She said, as long as you died, Henry would be hers completely. And Henry, I asked through gritted teeth, he agreed? He initially disagreed. Helen sighed. But Vivian, she told Henry she was pregnant, and the child was his. Boom, something exploded in my head. Pregnant? Vivian was pregnant with Henry's child? Of course, it was fake. Paul explained immediately. She lied to Henry. She calculated that Henry felt guilty toward her and wanted a child, so she used this lie to force him. So that's it. This was the final straw that broke Henry. A woman he had loved deeply for years, now pregnant with his child. And I, the business marriage wife, naturally became the expendable obstacle to sacrifice. I understood. I understood everything. I put away the documents and nodded to Vivian's parents. Thank you. These are very important to me. We should thank you. Thank you for not giving up on life and exposing their crimes. Paul stood and bowed again. Miss Serena, we have only one request. Let the law judge as it should, we have no objections. We only ask to see her one last time before her sentencing. Their faces showed the deepest sorrow of parents. I was silent for a moment, then said, I'll convey your request to the judge. Half a month later, in court. I sat in the plaintiff's seat, coldly watching the adulterous pair in the defendant's seat. After many days, they both looked much more haggard. Henry's face was covered in stubble, his eyes dull. Vivian was emaciated, no longer the pitiable figure she once was. Seeing me, their eyes filled with hatred and fear. The trial proceeded without drama. With complete evidence and witnesses, their defense lawyer had almost no ground to argue. Henry insisted it was negligent homicide, claiming he only intended to cut the rope to reduce the load on the piton, not expecting me to fall. Vivian absolved herself completely, saying she knew and saw nothing. Truly laughable. When it was our lawyer's turn, Victor presented the evidence I obtained from Vivian's parents one by one to the judge and jury. Henry and Vivian had long maintained an illicit relationship. They conspired to create the climbing accident. Vivian even used a fake pregnancy lie to coerce and catalyze Henry's murderous intent. Each piece of evidence hammered their lies to pieces. Upon seeing the chat logs, Henry completely broke down. He stared fixedly at Vivian, eyes bloodshot with disbelief. "You lied to me? You weren't pregnant at all? You've been deceiving me all along?" Vivian trembled under his gaze, unable to speak. "I did it for you, for you." Henry suddenly went mad, trying to rush over and strangle Vivian. "You bitch. You ruined me. I'll kill you." Bailiffs swarmed, pinning him down firmly. The courtroom descended into chaos. I watched this farce coldly, without a ripple in my heart. Dogs biting dogs, a mouthful of fur. They deserved it. Finally, it was my turn as the victim to make the closing statement. I wheeled myself slowly to the court center. I looked at Henry, held up by bailiffs, still struggling madly, and at Vivian, slumped on the floor, ashen-faced. I spoke, my voice not loud but clearly resounding through the courtroom. "I have nothing much to say. I just want to tell them, and myself. When a person can raise a butcher's knife against their former love, they no longer deserve to be called human. I stand here today not because I'm lucky, but because heaven has eyes. It spared my life so I could witness you two beasts receive your due retribution. I request the court to judge strictly according to law, without leniency." After speaking, I turned my wheelchair and left the courtroom without looking back. The uproar and curses behind me were irrelevant. The final verdict came. Henry, for intentional homicide, with conclusive evidence and cruel methods, was sentenced to life imprisonment. Vivian, as the mastermind and instigator, was also sentenced to life. They would spend their long, regretful remaining lives in prison. And I, upon receiving the verdict, calmly threw it along with my wedding photo with Henry into the fireplace. Flames rose, burning those unbearable pasts to ashes. My leg fully recovered after a year. I stood again, straighter and steadier than before. I managed the company orderly, tripling performance. I picked up the trekking poles and safety rope again, conquering higher and more perilous peaks one after another. Each time standing at the summit, overlooking the sea of clouds and mountains below, I would recall that fall. It wasn't the end. It was my rebirth.